Today at Foreign Exchange Brewing Company.
We've got a place in Foreign Exchange that in 2020 was awarded Best New Brewery in Illinois without even having a place.
Sure.
What could possibly be next?
The limited releases to line up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Oftentimes they turn into a big bottle share, and that's where I had my home brews. It was unintentional. I just brought a few and shared it out, and a lot of times I heard, well, your beer is better than the beer we're waiting for.
You have an unbelievable selection of high-end bourbons. Then you have some tequilas back there, too. What drove that decision?
I'm a very impatient man, but there's one thing that I absolutely love is the reward of waiting 2 years, 3 years for a stout or a barley wine to come out of a barrel.
Suddenly I see wild yeast gangs running through brew houses, terrorizing barrels.
It's not like the Ghostbusters ghosts. They don't just like fly out of the vault if you open
I'm sorry, have you ever slept in a brew house? Welcome to Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer, the award-winning podcast that will increase your enjoyment of craft beer and your appreciation for the people who brew it. Today, we have traveled to Aurora, Illinois to go from grain to glass with Ricky Cervantes. He's the founder and Director of Brewery Operations at Foreign Exchange Brewing Company. I'm beer drinker and hellraiser Brian Noonan, and all my opinions are strictly my own, for good reason. Behind the camera is our executive producer, Cody Goff. Cody, what are you excited about for this episode?
I'm excited because this brewery makes beers that I really like. Because this brewery does barley wines and bourbon in the best possible way. We'll also explain what is a barley wine anyway. English style, other styles, all the styles. And cocktails on tap? What? You'll never believe how and why. And I'm going to go get some right now.
Foreign Exchange Brewing Company is at 110 Cross Street, Suite 100 in Aurora, Illinois. Go to foreignexchangebrewing.com. Leave the company off. That seems tedious. Just Foreign Exchange
formal, too formal.
foreignexchangebrewing.com. My guest, Ricky Cervantes. Ricky, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. Thanks for having us. It is a pleasure. Foreign Exchange Brewing Company, if you don't know, and now you will, they are a microbrewery specializing in innovative small batch and oak-aged ale. They were named 2020's Best New Brewery in Illinois by our friends at porchdrinking.com. And they brew, according to their website, and I'm sure they're not lying because I've tasted some, they brew the best quality beer because they use the finest quality ingredients. That's right. So, Ricky, thank you again for being here. I hear that. I hear Best New Brewery. I hear specializing in innovative and small batch and oak-aged ales. What is it that makes Foreign Exchange different from other breweries?
We do things a little bit differently in the sense that we also focus on like the minute details with classic styles, but we also color far outside the lines on so many of our other beers that we brew. We don't really stick to a lot of style guidelines. I oftentimes make beers that kind of float between different beer styles, and we're very proud of it, and people seem to react really positively to what we do here.
I haven't heard that phrase before, floating between styles. Does that mean you're making like a stout? Or, I mean, what does that mean?
I haven't gotten that crazy yet.
Okay, good.
Actually, it's funny you asked that question right now. You're actually drinking Aurora Beer right now. Aurora Beer is actually a little bit of a hodgepodge of different beer styles. So there's a lot of characteristics, including a lot of details inspired by German lagers. However, it's made with an ale yeast, but it's the ale yeast fermented at lager temperatures. So it's kind of a Kolsch, but it's not Kolsch yeast. It's kind of a German lager by recipe.
Okay. It's got a real nice sweet maltiness to it.
Yeah.
It's very light. I'm really enjoying it because I like the malty flavor. I like the effervescence. I like the fact that it's not. I feel I could sit in Aurora and drink these all day.
Absolutely, yeah. The actual recipe is inspired by traditional German lagers. It's made in a very German way with a hyper attention to details.
What kind of details are we talking about? What makes that German lager specifically a German lager?
I mean, all the grain in this beer is from Heidelberg in Germany. On top of that, too, there's attention to the mash pH, the final finishing pH. pH levels, and just making sure that everything is hyper, like a lot of attention to detail to the brewing process in a very German and European way. There's a little bit of corn in there, which draws from American lagers, just for a little sweetness. It actually was inspired by Spotted Cow, which is a cream ale. We're calling it a German style golden ale.
It's really good.
It's probably a cream ale if it had to fit into any one.
We've been having a lot of conversations with brewers on both sides saying cream ale is a style and cream ale isn't a style. We've had both. I don't know. I always enjoyed cream ales from the time I drank Genesees back in the day to all kinds of cream ales.
Yeah. But this is a perfect example of that, where it just draws influence from so many different styles. Where it, like I said, on paper it could be seen as a German lager, but it's not a lager because it's not lager yeast. But it's not quite a cream ale. So we call it a German style pre-Prohibition golden ale.
And is that because it has a little history in Aurora? Is that why it's called Aurora Beer?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a nod. So we actually have an original 100-year-old bottle here of beer that was produced here in Aurora, just about 3 or 4 blocks north of here.
Oh wow!
Before Prohibition. So just to give you a little bit of context, the amount of beer that Aurora Beer Company was producing before Prohibition is about equivalent to 7% of what all Illinois craft breweries produced last year.
Whoa!
So they were a huge player in the game. They unfortunately did not survive Prohibition. They tried to get back up and running. It didn't work out. So we kind of wanted to bring something that's an homage to that. It's very inspired by the beers they were putting out at the time. And it was actually a collaboration with Lallemand Brewing. Lallemand Yeast released a yeast called Aurora Yeast. Okay. Nothing to do with the city of Aurora, but it was a lovely coincidence. And that's what we use in this beer as well to showcase that. And the actual label itself on the current beer is actually a reproduction of the original Aurora beer label. Obviously, just kind of added Foreign Exchange Brewing on there, but yeah.
That's excellent. It's nice to have that kind of history.
Sure.
And did you have access to old recipes, or were you just kind of looking at the history of beer in the area and saying, okay, this is probably what they were brewing and how it moved along?
I fell back on that second part only because there weren't any recipes available. I did find some family members that were descendants of owners, but unfortunately no recipes were available at the time. So I kind of had to go with what I knew. I knew they were Bavarian immigrants, so it was probably a German style lager, and kind of based the recipe and build around that.
So,
Quick producer note, you're going to hear a little microphone issue for about 4 minutes, but then it gets fixed.
what brought you to Aurora, and what's the story behind the dang Foreign Exchange?
I'm from Aurora. I grew up in Aurora, and also and seeing the revitalization of downtown Aurora is super inspiring, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So we wanted to. I wanted to be here. I wanted to be part of this and be a part of how downtown is transforming into a beautiful downtown area.
It has changed since when the casino came in and a theater, and just this block, there's a lot of new, you can tell the new development, the new residential places among the businesses. So you guys have apartments upstairs.
Yeah, 15 units is there.
That would be nice. Cody, how bad would it be if we lived above the brewery? Be good. Be good.
Sure, walk up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no, the parking lot for the apartments is right there. You don't have to drive. Man can dream. Anyway, let's go back to contract brewing. So you start that out, and we're gonna get into your home brewing because that is a story all on its own. But you've got to this point where you've decided, okay, it's time to scale up. We're gonna start doing it. How does somebody who hasn't been a professional brewer before approach a brewery and get them to say, okay, you can use our system, we believe in your beer?
Well, the big thing about Church Street is the way that they do their contract brewing. A lot of it is you just send them a recipe and they brew it. We did have some hiccups early on. Their head brewer at the time, it was in a very. We do things a little bit against the grain, and he tried to help us out, but it was like it actually ended up making the beer different than what I wanted it to be in the ale.
Okay.
But we quickly were able to work together. I started being there more present, being more hands-on, and that's when we started seeing the quality that we wanted out of that. But we actually, when you guys come and visit us, the story is actually here on the wall. We talked about how going from Oswego Brewing and kind of seeing 400 people come out and line up for our beer that we did as a home brewer to buy it. That's when we were like, okay, we brought in something. Church Street has this plan where they help out brewers, so you don't physically have to be there. You just send them a recipe. And I was being able to do that while still working my full-time job at the time.
Well, since you brought it up, I was going to ask you about this later, but that's an opportunity or a turning point in your brewing career. So tell us about that. All these people lined up because they do your reputation as a home brewer. So now you're doing this contract brewing as We Go Brewing. The word gets out. What was that like? What was the beer, and how did it all come about?
I mean, the first one was we did a beer called Triple Chocolate Cupcake. It was a stout, an Imperial stout that we did at We Go Brewing. When I was a home brewer, I was making a lot of stouts and barrel-aged stouts, and people were trading me like these limited release, hard to get beers for my home brew. As a result, like I said, there was a lot of hype and a lot of demand for what I was producing. So when they finally had a chance to brew one, people lined up to buy it, and that's when I kind of realized I had something here.
Yeah.
And we work with Church Street because they do everything in house. They have it on Cannon line. Just make it easy. And at the time, we were able to operate under their liquor license too. So not having a physical location, we had to tie a liquor license to, helped us out. They don't do it that way anymore, but at the time they did it was just very conducive to be a very easy next step for what I would do.
So we're going to jump around a lot because you bring up a lot of things. You said a sentence that I know is going to get Cody crazy because he is a huge Barleywine guy.
Sure.
You mentioned, and you are the first brewer we have ever talked to that now it was a home brewer, but a home brewer doing barrel-aged stouts and Barleywines. And everything I've read said it's very rare anywhere, not just here in Chicago, but that's very rare. What was it about the barrel aging process that when you started homebrewing, you immediately went to that, whereas most homebrewers, they're trying an ale or a lager or maybe something else.
Yeah.
You're going straight to the big boys.
Because barrel aged are what got me into brewing in the first place. There was a beer called Black Tuesday. I'm familiar with it. It's out of a brewery called The Brewery out of Orange County, California. And they do a beer every year called Black Tuesday. It's rabies anywhere from 19 to 21% ABV. But it used to cost $30 a bottle. You have to be a part of a club in their membership club to get it. And obviously, even if you buy into that club, you need to find someone in California to ship it to you because they won't.
Right.
So rather than like trying to do that, I'm like, well, I'm going to see if I can try to make my own. To this day, I still have not done it. However, that is what kind of got me into barrel aging and wanting to learn and soak up as much information as possible to not only make a great Imperial stout, but also do a great stout that does well in barrels. And yeah.
So logistically, that seems like a bigger deal. And some of my questions are going to seem simple, but I just don't know. Now I look in your brew house and you've got the big 55-gallon barrels, the barrels that most people are familiar with seeing when they go into a brewery or a brew house. You're not starting with those kind of barrels, right?
No,
or are you?
No.
Okay.
We actually Midwest Barrel Company wrote up a piece about, because I used to buy all of my barrels from Midwest Barrel Company.
That's where I read.
They do. I was doing 5 and 15-gallon barrels. I did do one 25-gallon barrel of barley wine. It was a very expensive barrel to fill.
Really?
Yeah, very, very expensive. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't start with that, because it's expensive to brew a big stout on a homebrew scale. But on top of that, too, that barrel's a couple $100, and then obviously, the more you use it, the quality diminishes. So you want to keep buying them, and it's just it's very expensive.
And where are you living at this point that you could store barrels?
So I actually live in Leland Tower, about 3 blocks north of here.
Okay,
the high rise here in downtown Aurora.
I'm sure they're beautiful apartments. Do they have a lot of barrel storage room?
They are not that beautiful apartments, but they may be now. They may have changed.
Okay, I didn't listen. I don't want to cast shade.
I had this freak unit that I was told it was the only unit like it in the entire building, but it had this strange closet that was off of the living room.
Okay,
it was like too small to be a bedroom, but too big to be a walk-in closet. It was just very awkward space.
Okay.
Electricity was included as part of the rent. There's no metering.
Okay.
So in that closet had a window. So I had a window unit in there that kept that room at whatever temperature I set it to.
Okay.
So it was essentially a walk-in cooler. Like I said, because it was bigger than an average walk-in closet, I had actual wooden barrel racks I had made to stack barrels in there. There's photos of this online. It just became a fermentation room that was powered by a window AC unit that ran year round.
Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Absolutely.
So what before you can barrel something, you have to have a stout.
Sure.
What was that first stout recipe that you thought, okay, this is the base that I want to use for my barrel aging experiments?
There was a few of them. The first stout I ever brewed, I actually brewed it with David Files from Energy City Brewing. We brewed it in his garage. He's the one that kind of gave me a lot of pointers and a lot about the science behind brewing high gravity beers. He had won a bunch of awards for his Imperial Stout. I haven't brewed that stout commercially ever, but I want to.
Really? Okay.
I'm trying to get it. I would love to do it with Energy City. I think that'd be a very sentimental collab for me. But it was just a lot of trial and error and just learning, making tweaks and figuring out what particular brands of maltsters of roasted barley that I liked that achieve the flavor profile I was looking for. So it was just a lot of trial and error, a lot of stouts that didn't work out the way I wanted them to.
What were you looking for in that first one? What kind of flavor notes? What kind of characteristics?
I'm not a big fan of like the roasty bitterness. So like a lot of the old Russian Imperial stouts, I was trying to get away from that dark fruit, trying to get more into the milk chocolate.
Okay.
And that still is what you get a lot of in a lot of my stouts that I still brew to this day. Very milk chocolatey, very low on the roasty coffee like aspects of it. Just going for something that's more smooth.
That sounds good. And you also said you mentioned barley wines.
Sure.
Now, I know Cody is a huge barley wine fan. I enjoy a nice barley wine from time to time. For people who don't know, they hear that term and they're like, is barley wine beer? Explain to folks what a barley wine is.
Yeah, so a barley wine is just a strong ale. They were initially brewed to mimic the strength of like a red wine, so right around 14% ABV. They're not very far off from like a Belgian quad in terms of concept. They are a little bit in terms of ingredients, but they were essentially just strong ales that were just brewed to be higher alcohol to match that of wine.
It's something people should, if they like heavier or, as you said, high gravity beers, there's something you should try, because I was hesitant at first just with the name, and I have that trouble with like an Old English bitter, sure. Which at first now I'm like, these aren't bitter at all. No. These are great. But you hear it, but once you try, you go, oh yeah, this is nice, and it's a nice characteristic because it's not a stout.
Yeah,
like you said, it's just a little heavier lager. So you're brewing these barrel-aged beers in your glorious apartment.
Yeah.
How does, and you said, well, my reputation for brewing these as a home brewer is getting out. How does that happen? Is it contests? Is it just going to different places? How does a home brewer like you get your name out when you're brewing these beers that most people don't expect a home brewer to have?
Since day one, I've always been very involved in the craft beer community.
Okay.
I support other breweries. I went to a lot of beer releases. So it was a lot of networking and just getting to know a lot. You obviously, as you go around, you see a lot of the same faces. But on top of that too, back before Osner existed, we used to have to line up for breweries, especially the limited releases. You'd line up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And I don't know if you ever lined up in any of those, but it was
I did for on some Black Fridays.
Yes.
I sure did.
Oftentimes they turn into a big bottle share, and that's where I had the opportunity to expose my home brews to a lot of people, because we'd just be pouring.
That was good
stuff.
thinking.
It was unintentional. I just brought a few and shared it out, and a lot of times I heard the feedback, in along the lines of like, well, your beer is better than the beer we're waiting for, and obviously that always felt great to hear. But it was a lot of that, and obviously I used to attend a lot of beer shares with friends, and friends that I've met just through the Chicago beer groups, just people that are into craft beer, and those people then talk to other people that are into craft beer, and it just kind of became a lot of word of mouth.
That's nice. And by the way, Energy City. You heard Ricky. Let's get that collab going. That sentimental collab. Dave. That would be fantastic. And then we'll take some credit for it, won't we, Cody? Sure. No, we won't. All right. So we know that as good as barley wines and barrel aged stouts are, everybody doesn't drink them all the time. But we're going to get into the lighter beers. I wanted to ask you one quick question about one of your stouts,
sure.
Kittywampus, rather, that you that was the first beer that Foreign Exchange brewed, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And then now it's your flagship.
Yeah.
One of your flagships. One of the flagships. So tell us about that. How did that one come to be, and how did you, it's not a surprise to me that you decided to do a stout as Foreign Exchange's first beer. But was that a conscious decision to go, we're coming out with my strongest style, and people are going to people are going to go for it, hopefully.
Yeah, that was one of the ones where I brewed that one as a home brewer, and even now when I brew a batch of beer and I have plans to fill barrels, you don't always you might fill all your barrels and you might still have some left over. And that was one of the ones where I brewed that to be kind of like coffee with sugar and cream, with the intention of also filling barrels with it. And at the time, Indiro Coffee used to be across the river from my apartment. So I got to know the owner there. Now he is right next door to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's
so
convenient.
Yeah. So I got to know Cody, and we used his coffee in a lot of the earlier batches. And yeah, that beer is it's super smooth. A lot of people that don't like dark beers love that beer, once again, because it's very chocolatey. It's very dessert-like. It has just the right amount of coffee without the coffee bitterness. It's made to be just very smooth and easy drinking. And it's gotten a lot of people that don't like stouts into stouts.
Okay.
People that don't like coffee into coffee beers. And
if you like both, it's right up your alley.
Exactly. It's one of the things it's always been a draw since day one, and we keep it on as best we can here.
Well, we're going to talk about the light beers, or lighter beers, because this one has a unique history. I'm drinking the Aurora Beer here at Foreign Exchange from Aurora Beer Company. We'll get to more of the definition of that and what that came about. But I want to ask you before we take our break, as you're deciding, okay, now I've got a brewery. I'm brewing beer. I've got to brew something other than just stouts.
Yeah.
What's the first non-stout barley wine that you brewed, and how did you decide on that particular beer?
So much of what I do is reactionary to the market, and also too, just to create things that I like and that I want that maybe might not exist, or might not exist enough. There might not be enough of it that exists. So if I can't get my hands on it, I'll make it myself.
There you go.
With you asked about Barleywine specifically, a trip to St. Louis, I went and tried Side Project Brewing's Barleywine. I was so blown away that I went home and I rewrote my recipe based on the tasting notes that I mentally wrote down on how that tasted. My Barleywine tastes nothing like an Abacus, but something like that really just like sparked me. Just like, whoa, I want to make something as good as this. Yeah. How do I do that? And I just kind of reverse engineered it just off of mental notes. And again, it's very, very different. But you know, I think it's up there in terms of the same quality. For that reason. Let's
take our break. We're going to come back with Brewer's Choice. We're going to talk about Aurora Beer, which is one of the styles on tap here at Foreign Exchange Brewing Company, 110 Cross Street, Suite 100 in Aurora, Illinois. Go to foreignexchangebrewing.com. Our guest today, Ricky Cervantes. He's the founder. He's the head of brewing operations. And we'll be back with more on Crafty Brewers. And we are back on this edition of Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer. We're at Foreign Exchange Brewing Company, 110 Cross Street, Suite 100 in Aurora, Illinois. Go to foreignexchangebrewing.com for all the information. Ricky Cervantes is here. He's the founder. He's the head of brewing operation. He's the man behind all the deliciousness you will drink when you come to Foreign Exchange. All right, Ricky, this is exciting. This is the time when we call it Brewer's Choice, because you get to highlight something special. And I don't think we could have come here. We've already talked about the Aurora Beer, which was fantastic.
Thank you.
But we couldn't really be at Foreign Exchange if we didn't have a stout or a barley wine as part of the Brewer's Choice. So what do we have in front of us?
We have Clockwork. This is actually my favorite beer to brew.
Really?
It's an English-style barley wine. This particular one was aged This one was a single barrel aged in a Maker's Mark Private Select barrel for 19 months. This is one of my favorite beers to brew. It's actually
what makes it one of your favorites to brew?
This is the beer that I mentioned earlier in the show about going home after trying this barley wine that blew me away and rewriting the recipe. And this is the recipe that I rewrote. I've brewed this several times, and this is the same recipe as the one I brewed in my apartment almost a decade ago.
Very nice. Well, I already see a huge look at the smile on Cody's face. The happiest little boy. It's like Christmas morning.
I'm pleased by this. I'm very pleased by this. Cheers. Yeah, sorry I kind of cheated. I got a little sneak peek, but it is I love sweet barley wines. I mean, they're supposed to be sweet, right? They're just nice.
Not all of them. Barley wines, much like IPAs, have they can go in so many different directions. The ones that I like to brew, we do the English ones, which are more caramely, toffee, but mine do have a little bit of extra sweetness added to that. So it kind of ropes in some of the fans of the high gravity Imperial stouts into this beer style as well. And also too, it makes it very approachable for people who like sweet things, to get them into a style they may have never heard of before.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, we
as
just
I
both-
take a sip.
Brian and I are both just
dead
downing
air.
it.
Oh my God!
I mean, it
No.
is.
You've mentioned English style barley wines. What other style barley wines are there?
There's also an American style barley wine. American barley wines typically tend to be a little bit on the hoppier side.
Okay.
Yeah, so you do get some bitterness. Our friends over at Solemn Oath, right here next door in Naperville, brew some great American barley wines. I'm personally a fan of more of the caramel toffee. It was a natural progression from Imperial stouts going into this style of barley wines.
Okay.
And also with this being a little bit on the sweeter side, it's more of a dessert. This is a beer that you can kind of sip and savor and enjoy enjoy this bottle over a period of hours if you wanted to.
What, for people who are wondering, what's the ABV in this?
This one's 14.5. It's on the lower side of my barrel aged offering. But it's a big beer for sure.
Because you have some other ones that are up near 15, 17.
We've got 15.4 is the biggest one we have on tap right now. That's one of ours. We do have actually a higher gravity one from our friends over at Workforce on tap right now. The highest beer we've ever done was 17%, and that was actually a big Imperial stout that we did with Riverlands, actually.
Oh, okay. We've had a good time at Riverlands as well.
As have I.
Again, for people who maybe this kind of beer is not what they're used to, what's the difference between a stout, so people would know a stout like a Guinness, and an Imperial stout? Is it just the alcohol level? Is it what sets those apart?
I mean, by definition, it's going to be the alcohol level, the gravity of the beer. It's the same thing with like a double IPA versus a triple IPA versus just a pale ale. It's going to be just higher gravity, more ingredients are used to make it, which are going to result in more sugars and potentially more sugars in the final product, depending on obviously there's a lot of variables in regards to that.
Sure.
It's just a bigger beer essentially.
How much of your program and your portfolio now is barrel aged stuff as opposed to like the Aurora Beer? Or I had one of your bestseller. You told me The Usual, which is an American lager, which was really good, very crushable, 4%. So where you've got 4% offerings and now you've got 15% offerings, what's the ratio for you as a brewer?
I mean, it's going to be, we're definitely going to lean more toward the lower gravity stuff. I mean, that's also the way the market's going. A lot of people are gravitating toward that. But that being said, I don't shy away from what got me here in the first place. So we make it a point.
You got to dance with who brought you.
Exactly. So we make it a point to always have a barrel aged stout, a barrel aged barley wine, some kind of barrel aged beer on tap.
Yeah.
So the people that are the ones that kind of spread that word of mouth early on. What they fell in love with, they can come here and enjoy anytime they want. But that being said, we do have plenty of lagers. We do plenty of we did a beer called Peel Party. I'd never brewed a wheat before in my life. I brewed 20 barrels of it. I thought for sure it was going to be here forever. We are almost sold out of it.
Really?
We blew through that part through Peel Party. It's just a American wheat beer. However, we're starting to see more and more people come in and actually start to gravitate toward the barrel aged beers. And I think it's a lot of people. So many of the people that come in here are repeat customers.
Okay,
which I
that's
love.
great.
I love to hear.
That's perfect.
And they've tried the left half of the menu, so to speak, which is going to be the lower gravity stuff, the IPAs, the lagers. And now they're we pique their interest with Kittywampus, and then once they try that, the feedback I hear is, I don't normally like dark beers, but I like this one. And then they'll then get curious about the rest of them. And so we're starting to see more and more people gravitate toward the barrel-aged beers.
Is it an easier bridge for somebody who hasn't had the barrel-aged stuff to go with a barley wine before a stout or vice versa, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on personal preference. Like I said, Kittywampus is an easy sell because, first of all, the name...
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a fun name.
It's fun.
But on top of that, too, people like coffee. And once I describe it as like being similar to like coffee with sugar and cream, I drink that every morning. You know what? I'll try that.
There you go.
And then that opens their eyes to what else could be here.
Okay.
We also have a marshmallow and vanilla stout on barrel aged stout on tap right now. And hey, people like marshmallows, people like vanilla.
I'm gonna try them all. I'm gonna have every
Yes.
stout you ever make. I'm gonna come back
We're
so
gonna have
much.
to carry you out of here.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll put Cody in a bucket.
Actually, this might sound weird, but on that note, do you think that it's easier to sell these high ABV beers given the fact that you serve food so people can lay a base?
Nice segue, Cody.
That's an excellent question. I don't know if that's a direct cause, but it certainly helps.
Well, you mentioned you wanted to be part of the community, and part of the community is welcoming families in and people who just want to have a beer. But having food helps. When you opened the tap room, were you planning on having food, or did the food you were not forced to have food, but you realized, oh, if I want people to come and they stay longer, this is what people want when they come out to a brewery now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. When I started homebrewing beer in my apartment, I absolutely had no intention of having a restaurant. That being said, I've been to several breweries where I sit down, I take a look around. Half the tables have tables full of food, not a single beer in sight.
Oh no.
And that's one of those things where that was the eye opener for me. That's what really was oh man, this is needed. And fast forward, so that we baked that into the design of this place.
Right.
And 5 years later, that's now the standard. That's where the market's it's gone. It's we're here now.
I feel like it's kind of like with coffee shops and bookstores. I would go to Barnes and Noble all the time in high school and just to get a coffee because there's a Starbucks inside.
Sure.
That's maybe a weird, different thing, but it's kind of the same. I don't know. Maybe people just, it is a way to get people who maybe aren't even going to think about buying a beer to just come in.
Sure.
It is nice to have something to eat when you come in and you want to sit. And it also, you talked about repeat customers, it also lengthens somebody's time in your establishment. Because if I come in and I have one beer, all right. But now I can have some of these cheese curds, which are fantastic because they're different from other cheese curds. They don't have all that breading on them.
Yeah.
It's just cheese.
Exactly.
It
absolutely just melts in your mouth as well.
It's delicious. I love a good. Now that's the second kind of Wisconsin reference. You mentioned New Glarus earlier, and now we got cheese curds. Pretty soon there's going to be a brat truck out front, and then we're gonna polka. That's how we're gonna end the show. No 4 questions today, Cody. We're poking.
Oh, I thought we were going to get into maybe brandy old fashions or something.
Maybe get some old fashions.
But I know there's some regular old fashions.
Hold
here.
on
well, not
now.
regular.
This
Regulars.
is man, you're a segue king today. You've taken my segue crown. I enjoy giving it up. Because just like people want some food, some people, I don't know why, but some people are not fans of beer. They want something else. They want a cocktail. You have 2 cocktails on tap, which I think is great for your bartenders because they don't have to be mixologists.
Sure.
They pour beers and now they pour cocktails. What are the cocktails that you have on tap?
We've got a margarita, which is one of our best-selling cocktails that we have. It's made with Don Julio tequila, so it's going to be super smooth. It's a high-quality tequila. Yeah, there's no Jose Cuervo here.
Yeah, it's nice.
No offense to Jose Cuervo. And we have Sweater Weather, which is a spiced, lightly sweet old-fashioned that we have on tap as well.
And you also have, and I don't know if this is not a secret because you tell people, you have an unbelievable selection of high-end bourbons. If you want to come in and have a nice beer and then treat yourself to a good sip of bourbon. Cody, do you like bourbon?
Yes.
Then have you looked on the shelves?
I hesitated because yes, but I'm not
Well, you don't have to be.
I'm not a great bourbon, I'm not a connoisseur.
I'm not as advanced as a lot of people. I know I'm learning a little bit more.
Right. Will I
and
have a
it's fun
Jack
to
Daniel's
learn.
Tennessee Honey and be happy? Yeah. Will most people be like, that's weird? I don't know. That's not exactly high end.
You got to drink what you like.
We don't judge her.
Good.
So what is the bourbon selection is different from any, and again, it sets Foreign Exchange apart from other places. What drove that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to have wonderful barrel-aged beers. I'm going to have lighter alcohol, ABV beers that are fantastic. We're going to have some food, a nice simple menu of tacos and some sandwiches and cheese curds and elote fritters. And see, I did read the menu. I told you I read the menu before I came. And now I'm going to add bourbon to the mix, and you have some tequilas back there too. But you have mostly bourbon. What drove that decision?
It's because I'm selfish. I'm a
There you
selfish
go.
man.
I love that. Thank you for the honesty, Ricky.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I love good bourbon. I'm a bourbon drinker. I've got way too much bourbon at home. And I have lofty aspirations of one day retiring from all of this and having a nice whiskey bar with some really nice stuff. And I'm kind of living vicariously through that dream here at Foreign Exchange.
You're pretty close. Now, let me ask you: as you envision this utopia of bourbon and your own home thing, will there somewhere in there, even if it's an oddly shaped closet, will there be a barrel somewhere with something aging in it?
Of bourbon?
No, of one of your barrel aged. Well, once you empty the bourbon, I was going to say you got to keep brewing, right?
Oh no, I'm a very impatient man. My girlfriend will tell you that. I'm a very impatient man, but there's one thing that I absolutely love is the reward of waiting 2 years, 3 years for a stout or a barley wine to come out of a barrel. I've even got a wild mixed culture barrel back there that's basically a homemade foeder that I built. The reward of after waiting 2 or 3 years and having an exceptional product come out of that barrel is absolutely one of my favorite things in the world. So
now, and this is something we've heard as we've talked to other brewers, and I always wonder about it. We've heard that having a wild yeast tank could be dangerous to the rest of the brew house. Does it concern that or how do you contain it? So what we've heard is, that yeast can get out, and once it gets out, it could get into everything, and then things are haywire in your brew house.
I'm not going to jinx myself and say that, but I mean, I have a theory. When I was homebrewing, I was doing barrel-aged stouts, barrel-aged barley wines, and I was doing wild ales, like wild bacteria in barrels. I was using the same equipment, but I was very meticulous about my cleaning procedures, making sure that I was never too lazy to not break something down and clean thoroughly. So I personally believe that you can utilize the same equipment and not have a cross-contamination issue. That's just my personal belief. That being said, though, there is a butterfly valve on that foeder that I built that will go directly into a keg. It will be bottled. You probably won't see any of those wilds on my draft lines.
Oh, okay.
So I will take some precautions just out of sheer paranoia, because you've made me paranoid now.
I didn't mean to make you paranoid. I'm just confused because you hear, sometimes brewers, I don't want to say they exaggerate a story, but they embellish a little bit.
Right.
And, you suddenly I see wild yeast gangs running through brew houses, terrorizing barrels.
And it's like Ghostbusters ghosts. They don't just fly out of the vault if you open it.
I'm sorry. Have you ever slept in a brew house?
You can sleep in this one after that barley wine.
Yeah, that's you might need. He might need to.
Barley wine. The idea of, if there's yeast somehow getting out of that foeder and making its way into this stack of barrels over here, that means I'm not cleaning my floor on a regular basis. If using the same hose, if something happens there, that means I'm probably not taking the fitting off of that hose and make sure I'm cleaning that thoroughly. That's my personal belief. I know everyone. Every brewer has their own regiment and the way they do things. I know some breweries that have multiple buildings and they keep the sour barrels in another building, and that's fine. But I'm gonna keep rolling the dice.
No, listen, why not? Yeah. That's what makes life fun, right? Life. Exactly. You're like, I don't know. Maybe I come in, everything is hunky-dory. Maybe I come in, who knows what's happening.
Wait, I have several follow-up questions about
Good, then I'm going to have another cheese curd. You ask your follow-up question.
That was one of them. We talked about the fact that there's food, but we didn't talk much specifically about the cheese curds.
I did. I mentioned they're not covered in breading, that they're really good. Ricky said they melt in your mouth. I concurred. No pun intended.
Yeah, so these particular ones are peri-peri cheese curds. We also do have masala cheese curds. So for those that aren't familiar, we do Indian Mexican fusion here. So we utilize some traditional Hispanic presentation, but we do utilize Indian spices, Indian sauces. But everything's made to be very approachable. So we're just dipping our toes in the Indian spices. Mm-hmm. So even if you have some sort of premonition, like a lot of people do, about Indian food, you come here, we're going to blow your socks off, because we're dipping our toes into that. And who knows? I would love for you to go to an actual Indian restaurant and try that after you leave here. And at that point, they're going to turn it up to 10.
Yeah, they're going to crank it up. I noticed that's where I had to look up one of your tacos. the Pero, is that the cheese, the Indian cheese one?
Paneer.
Paneer. I was like, I don't know what that is. And I looked it up today and I was like, ooh, this is an Indian cheese, right?
Yeah, it's a semi-firm Indian cheese. We toss that in our tikka masala gravy. And that's a vegetarian option. So that's a very traditional vegetarian alternative to meat in Indian cuisine. We just present that in a taco. They're quite good. I eat them. I'm a meat eater, but I eat those quite often.
They look I was like, oh, this sounds like something you come in and you go, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
I'm trying a couple new beers. I'm going to try this.
Sure.
And now you mentioned before that you brew what you like to drink.
Mm-hmm.
When you were developing your kitchen, did you have an eye on what you had in the brew house, or was it, I like Mexican and Indian food, I'm going to do that, and there's enough on my board that will mesh with that?
No, I mean, a lot of it is, there's two different reasons there. One of which is I have Indian business partners.
Okay.
So it's a melding of our cultures. I'm Mexican. Nice. I have a Mexican flag hanging in the brewery.
Very nice.
It's basically melding of our cultures. We had a lot of our meetings, our business planning meetings when we were planning this place and during the construction of this at Indian restaurants. And I would try so many of the dishes that I had never had before, and my mind was just blown. I remember the first time I had hariali chicken, which is a green chicken. It's made with like cilantro and peppers, and it's very, very green. And I had it, and I was like, oh my God, this would be great in a taco. Why are we not doing this? We should do this.
There you go.
And that's kind of what kind of spurred this. But on top of that, too, we wanted to create something that was familiar for Aurora, but different enough to set us apart from any of the 20 taco spots that are literally within walking distance of here. And this is our approach to do that.
It was very interesting, so.
All this talk of, different heritages, is that where the name Foreign Exchange comes from?
Not at all. So I touched upon that I wanted to brew Black Tuesday, and that's why I started brewing Imperial stouts and barrel aging beer in my apartment. I had no idea what I was doing. I went to Chicago Brew Works, and I talked to the guys that work there, very good friends of mine to this day, about how to do that, how to brew a beer that high of alcohol. They had no idea. So doing so was a foreign concept. And fermentation is the exchange of sugars to alcohol. So it's a nerdy tie-in back to me not knowing what I was doing and knowing how to ferment a beer that high of alcohol.
Very nice.
My other follow-up question was on the
Yes, Cody.
The cocktails on tap. Why don't more places do that? Is it logistical difficulty? Do you find it's hard to pull off?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know why more breweries do it. But I know like for restaurants, for example, the fact that we have a keg washer, we mix them in the keg. And then at that point, after it's done, I can then go wash that keg. A lot of bars obviously don't have access to clean kegs or don't have access to kegs to do that. So that could be a reason why. As far as brewers, that's a question for their beverage program people.
Now, this, again, probably a dumb question, but I've never shied away from a dumb question.
Hey, I just asked a dumb question.
No, you asked a great question, according to Ricky. That's why I set my bar low. So this question is going to be, that's an adequate inquiry instead of a great question. That's all I'm looking for, adequate inquiries.
Okay.
Crafty Brewers, tales behind adequate inquiries. Do the cocktails settle? Like once you mix them, how do they stay mixed?
So legally we have to actually empty those kegs out by the end of the week.
Okay.
The margarita we've noticed stays pretty homogeneous throughout its week lifespan. But the old fashioned, I have noticed that the simple syrup does tend to separate and settle.
Okay.
So every once in a while, if you don't shake it, so our staff every couple shifts are instructed to shake that keg up.
Oh, okay.
And I've noticed when that doesn't happen, you pour an old fashioned and it's just super sweet. It's too sweet, which some people love.
Sure.
But not me.
I'm not getting any bourbon in there.
I like a little bit of whiskey with my sugar.
I'm 100% on agreement.
We have a process in place to periodically rouse those kegs and keep things homogeneous.
Yeah, because I mean, both of those cocktails sound fantastic, and yet it's like, okay. So we've got a place in Foreign Exchange that in 2020 was awarded Best New Brewery in Illinois without even having a place.
Sure.
Then you've evolved to now being in this beautifully bright and welcoming tap room. You've got a nice kitchen with unique food. You've got great beers ranging from really approachable, low ABV lagers to really hefty and delicious barrel-aged beers. What could possibly be next?
I don't know.
There you go.
I have enough hobbies. I'm told I'm not allowed to have any more. So I'm going to keep plucking away at that. That being said, I do love wild ales. I do want to keep experimenting with those. I've kind of started going back to home brewing every once in a while. And I have a little bit of a homebrew brand called Slow Magic that, who knows, might be its own thing in the future, somewhere else. But
what are you experimenting with? What different styles, or again merging styles like you talked about before? Or?
So I've done. It's not legal, so it's homebrew.
It's homebrew, just homebrew. We're not selling it.
Yeah,
Back
it's
off.
homebrew. But I have done a barrel-aged barley wine with THC in it. It is wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful.
Be careful. Cody's going to follow you home.
I absolutely. That is no longer around. So, but no, I mean that's something that obviously I could never do because it'll never be legal. But I love doing experimenting, pushing the boundaries of what I can do, what's next.
Yeah.
Obviously we do some of that here. We do quite a bit of that here. But then on top of that too, just wild ales, just building more upon that. I don't have the room here to do that. Okay. So if I can do some small batch stuff, and who knows, like some of that stuff may make its way here in the form of the idea. If I come up with something that's so unique and I love what happened in this small scale, bring that here, scale it up, and then serve that out to the masses. I don't know if the world is ready for any more super niche microbreweries, but
listen, everybody seems to be going the other way, so why not? There's always room for.
That's true. That's true.
Always room for something experimental. Always room for something new and tweaking something. That being said, the last question before we get to the final four. You made your bones as a barrel aging guy. Mm-hmm. You've continued that program. Is there anywhere in barrel aging that you're still like, okay, that's my next barrel aging plateau?
It comes with space. It comes with regards to space. One of the things I used to do as a home brewer is basically I had a ton of different barrels of a bunch of different recipes. And I used to love blending. I still do that here. I've got a bunch of barrel aged stock in the basement that's already been barrel aged.
Oh, wow.
That I still pull from to this day. And I've got some fresh barrels that you can see here through the window when you come into the brewery. I'd love to just build upon that. And that the next step would be just to have more room.
Just increase.
Hopefully find a place where I can be able to afford a place.
There you go.
Second place where I can then fill more barrels and then have a nice library that I can kind of pick and choose from to build the perfect beer. Because obviously not every beer that comes out of a barrel is perfect the first time around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been great. And you know what it's time for, Ricky? The final four. The final four. We ask the same four questions of every brewer. Every answer has been different. But we're going to do that right now. All right. The first one, and I don't know. I'm eager to hear your answer because I don't know if there is an answer.
Sure.
The hill you'll die on. The one style that maybe some of the customers come into Foreign Exchange. They're like, listen, Ricky, we like everything you're doing, but why won't you ever brew this? Please brew one of these. And you're like, nope.
I don't know if I have a hill I'll die on with regards to things I won't brew, but the hill I'll die on is that barley wine is life, and I love barley wine.
Cody's actually getting that tattooed on his chest. Ironic next week.
Dude, you're one of my favorite brewers we've talked to.
Can I chip into that?
We speak the same language. This is great.
I love it.
Other
than that, like I don't do a lot of kettle sours. A lot of people come in like, oh, when are you going to do a kettle sour? I'm like, that's not fun to me. I like the challenge of wild. I like wild ales.
Okay.
And especially barrel aged wild ales. The complexity of those, you'll never be able to do in a kettle sour.
Yeah.
So I don't do too many of those, and you may not see that many of those coming from me. When I do, I actually have one on right now. It's from my good friend Eric at Neronova Brewing. And I'm happy to support him, and happy to support friends and fill some gaps in my taps. But I'm not a big kettle sour guy.
All right. Very good. What about question number 2, a beer you brewed? People might have really liked it, but for some reason you're just like, I'm not doing that one again.
We did a triple IPA with lactose called "What Could Possibly Go Wrong."
That's tempting fate right there.
It was like 11% ABV. It was huge. It was a great beer. It was a little too sweet for me personally, but people love that beer. I've had requests for that one to come back. I don't use lactose in IPAs anymore.
Okay.
Even our fruited IPAs that we have on tap right now don't have lactose anymore. The only beer that I produce that still has lactose is Kittywampus because it's part of the recipe.
That's part of the recipe.
But that also I don't remember what it was, but also with regards to that beer, there was a woman in Downers Grove that purchased that beer called "What Could Possibly Go Wrong." Yeah. She absolutely fell in love with it, and then like a week later, like her son became like I don't know if terminally ill is the word because he recovered.
Okay, good. Okay,
but she was like, "You are not allowed to brew that beer. I'm convinced it's jinxed." She was. At least I hope that was a joke.
She blamed you.
I hope that was a joke. I hope that was a joke, but I'll never forget that story. And so. What could possibly go wrong? Will never be brewed again.
That's a good hook that we hang that on. That's why you will not brew that beer again because of that woman.
I don't need to put anyone else's life in danger.
Listen, that's a good policy for every brewer.
Exactly.
I think. Don't put anybody's life in danger. Question number 3: your go-to off-the-clock beer. Maybe it's one of yours. Maybe it's something else.
I'm not going to plug Miller High Life again.
Okay.
I have Miller High Life on tap right now.
Yes, you do, which is great, and we love Miller High Life. You're going to sponsor us one of these days, Miller High Life, because we have given you so much free pub, and I'm back in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin on the air, so a lot going on there. Anyway,
I don't know how to answer this question without sounding like a sales guy, but Aurora Beer has been my go-to since that beer came out. It's just a full-flavored, easy-drinking beer. I love that beer.
There's nothing wrong with saying that because as I had one, I was like, yeah, I could see this going with whether I'm just drinking a beer, whether I'm having a snack, it doesn't matter. It's got a really, really good flavor.
Absolutely. And then the other one is a beer that we just came out with. It's called Primo Pils. It is a jalapeno lime pilsner that we actually came up with this idea via Chicago-ish. So we did a habanero lime Chicago-ish in the summer. I was afraid it was going to be a little too spicy. People went crazy for it all summer. And then since it ran out, people were asking, when are you making that beer again? When are you making that beer again? So I reworked the recipe. It's a little bit higher gravity. It's 5.7% ABV. And it's a Mexican lager instead of a Czech lager. But it's back.
And you said habanero lime.
Habanero and lime, yeah. So it's got the perfect amount of habanero heat to it. It's got a nice little sweetness from the sweet and lime. And it's just a lovely beer. It's an easy crusher. Makes me wish it was summer right now.
So, Ricky, you showed us the bigger bottle before from the original Aurora Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Now we have another historic bottle right here next to the current bottle. Explain this, and why did you decide to bottle your edition of Aurora Beer?
Short answer, historical accuracy. I mean, actually, a fan of ours that's been a longtime fan of ours on Instagram. He actually collects antiques and he seeks out antiques, and he actually found this bottle, I think up in Grace Lake or something, and he mailed it to us as a kind of like a housewarming gift when we first opened.
How old do they think that bottle is?
It's pre-Prohibition, so it dates back to pre-Prohibition, so just under 100 years, right around 100 years old.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and when I was doing the package for this, I actually had designed this label, which is a redesign of the original Aurora Beer label. I designed it in can size.
Okay.
And when he mailed me this bottle, I was like, oh my God, I need to bottle this instead of cans.
Yeah.
So I redesigned the label again, shrunk it down, had to redo it. And we decided to hand bottle it instead of actually canning it, for the purpose of historical accuracy.
Okay.
Even going as far as to using an actual paper label, which is 4 times the cost of a vinyl label.
Wow.
Just to try to be as historically accurate as possible.
And so this is for sale as a single bottle?
Yeah.
I mean, it's on tap, so you could, because we had it.
Yeah, we have it on tap as well. We have it on tap, and then bottles are $6.99, so it's very reasonably priced. We've had a lot of people that grew up in Aurora that came in and bought like close to a case of
Oh,
it
yeah.
a person to give away as Christmas gifts.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it's a great reference to the city of Aurora's brewing history.
And I love the old bottle has.
That's what IRS.
Oh yeah. Why is there a little something on there that says Internal Revenue Tax Paid?
That's actually a callback to the original label. So the original label had that exact verbiage on there. I don't know if that was the equivalent of like tax stamps. They used to be wrapped on top of whiskey bottles. I don't know if that's the equivalent of that.
Okay.
But that was a direct pull from the original Aurora Beer label.
Wow.
The only changes we made at the face is just obviously incorporate our name into that. I redesigned the Aurora Beer Company logo, which is public domain now.
Sure.
And just added Foreign Exchange Brewing Company. But the original, that's very similar to the original logo.
And it says store cold, drink fresh, drink foreign. How long can this, like, you should buy it and drink it. But how long can people hold on? Like if you got it as a Christmas gift from one of your customers, like if one of the people came in and bought the case, gave me a bottle, I personally wouldn't let it sit for too long. But what is fresh?
I mean, fresh is
right now.
Drink it as soon as you get it.
You should always
but that being said, though, I mean, we put that on all of our packaging because we always want you to drink our beer fresh. Even in our barrel aged beers, we've done the aging for you, so you don't have to. That being said, I've bought some cans of beer at an antique store and I've drank them, and so they were surprisingly held up pretty decent. So if a 30 or 40-year-old can of beer can still be good, who knows what this will be like in 40 years?
Maybe in 100 years, somebody will be eating one of Foreign Exchange's Aurora beers going, this is an example of a beer made in early 2026.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Who knows? Only time will tell.
Final question, because your menu is, again, a fusion of Indian and Mexican food, and we just talked about a new Mexican lager, and you have other kind of lagers. What is your favorite beer and food pairing?
I've got two.
Give us two. We got time. Ricky, come on. What are we going to cut you off?
So our peri peri chicken tacos are my go-to when I'm working, when I'm actually physically working here for lunch, because they're nice and light and bright, and there's a little bit of acidity to it. That with the Primo Pills, I think, is a killer combo. Previously habanero lime Chicago-ish, but same idea. And then also, our smash burger is actually our best selling menu item here. Okay. Our smash burger with just a pint of the usual, like burger and beer, man. You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong, especially when the usual is every day $5 a pint.
Exactly.
That's always an all the time deal. That is great. Well, Ricky Cervantes has been my guest. We are at Foreign Exchange Brewing, 110 Cross Street in, I should say, Suite 100. Unit 100, Apartment 100,
First floor.
Suite 100. Yeah, it's right there. Right on the street. You'll see the signs.
Yeah.
If you get to 110 Cross Street and you can't find it, you've
probably had too much.
Yeah, you don't want to come in. And they don't really want. If you can't figure out to walk in the door that says open, figure it out. All right. But anyway, foreignexchangebrewing.com. Now, before we get to our final toast, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer. Please, 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 and I know I seem glib with a lot of my comments. This is sincere. Please be sure to support your local brewery. They are the heart of your community. They are great gathering places for you and your family, and without your support, it is very rough going for some of your favorite small breweries. For the first time, more breweries have closed than opened in this country, and it is really dire for some of your favorites, so make sure you support them. Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer is produced by award-winning podcast producer and Barleywine aficionado, Cody Goff. He's empty. I'll wrap it up quickly then.
No, I need to get more beer for the final
because
toast.
you never stay for the final toast.
Final toast. I need to toast with something.
Pour yourself a little bit.
There's a little bit more.
Pour yourself a little bit. While Cody is pouring that, let me tell you, you can visit our website. You're blocking the camera because you're having cheese curds as well. All right. Oh, boy. See, I told you, Ricky, things go off the rails. Hey, did I tell you can visit our website? If I didn't, I should have. You can, and you can peruse our archive of over 50 episodes. You can get in touch with us or grab some of our brand new merch from our brand new merch line at craftybrewerspod.com. We release a new episode of Crafty Brewers every other Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts, including, of course, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Do you want to support the show? Why wouldn't you? We're very supportable guys. Just leave a comment on YouTube. That helps us. Any comment will do, Cody. Is that true?
Any comment will do. Or if you have a hole burning in your pocket, you have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/craftybrewers. We are not trying to become millionaires from the podcast. We are just trying to make it cost us less money to do. So if you want to kick us back $1 or $2 per episode or whatever you are able to, that would be much appreciated. We have fun doing it, so either way it'll be good, but
Yeah, we're not threatening you. We're not going to go away.
I will threaten you, though, with enough barley wine.
Yeah. Give Cody another drink and a cheese curd, and things are going to get
I'm
wild.
a very friendly drunk. And I don't get drunk because we always drink responsibly on this show. Always drink responsibly.
That is not true. Anyway, thanks again to Ricky Cervantes. He is the founder and head of brewing operations here at Foreign Exchange Brewing Company. Thank you, Ricky. This was a lot of fun. I hope
Thanks
you
for
enjoyed
having me.
yourself.
Had a blast.
I'm Brian Noonan. That brings us to our final toast. We always start with our guest. What should we toast today, Ricky?
Let's toast to good beer.
Toast to good beer. Cody?
Good beer, many more years of it.
Just a guy that just gets the right styles.
That's
Like
right.
barley wine, underrated style, and you nailed it, man.
Cheers to
Let's
that.
go.
And I want to toast to being true to yourself, experimentation, and other people's opinions be damned. You do what you do.
Damn right.
All right. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Exchange that. That could be Foreign Exchange's new tagline.
Wow.
Make me choke on my barley.
Yeah, next time. That's what she said. Good morning.
Please let that be your next. That could be our beer collab. Exchange that.
Exchange
Brewed in
that.
collaboration with Crafty Brewers. I have a shed next to my house where I could age some barrels. It's not climate controlled. Think about it.
I don't know how I feel about you inviting me to the shed next to your house.
What he didn't mention is there is a pit in the shed. Take that for what you will, Ricky.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right.